Good evening. My name is Rich Grubbins, theology teacher and coordinator of theology outreach and conferences at Archbishop McCarthy High School. Welcome to the second installment in McCarthy High School's Spring Speaker Series. This new program runs every fourth Thursday evening of the month through May on Zoom. In it, we will be bringing in prominent Catholic scholars, authors, and speakers to our community to enlighten us on a wide variety of topics to help us grow in knowledge and love of the faith. Now, please mute yourself until we open the floor for questions. Thanks. This evening's presenter, Katrenia Reeves-Jackman, in a talk entitled African Americans on the Road to Sainthood, will profile 6 heroic men and women who overcame racism and discrimination in living out an authentic witness to the Catholic faith. Together, we will look at their struggles and where they are in the process of canonization and how we can support their causes for sainthood. Katrenia is director of the Office of Black Catholic Ministry of the Archdiocese of Miami. Appointed by Archbishop Wenski in 2012, this office was established in 1989 to serve the cultural, social, and spiritual needs of the Black community. One main goal of this important ministry is to assist our youth in obtaining a Catholic education. Her office was featured prominently in the Florida Catholic in November, which is Black Catholic History Month. So here she is above the fold in the November issue of Florida Catholic. I will be monitoring the chat window for questions or comments, so please feel free to post there. I will present those questions to Katrenia after her talk. There will be an opportunity for you to ask live questions then as well. Take it away, Katrenia.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much for that that great introduction. And I'll just a little side for you on the Florida Catholic article. I didn't even realize that it was going to be in the paper in November. And I'm like you, I was passing a stand at the Pastoral Center for the Archdiocese of Miami, and I saw myself. And I went, wow, what is this? And there I was. And it was great to see it because, of course, we were talking about November being National Black Catholic History Month and talking about these same 6 candidates for sainthood are African Americans who are on the road to sainthood. And that happens to be quite an accomplishment for a lot of different reasons. These are 6 individuals. Some of them were slaves, some of them were free folks, some of them were born in this century, and what they had to endure in order to be able to fulfill their commitment to their God, and how they overcame a lot of those issues. And what has happened since then, that they were recognized by their own people. So just a little bit before we get started, I just wanted to say, yes, I'm the director of the Office of Black Catholic Ministry for the Archdiocese, and it is a position where our main goal is just to make sure that we are providing opportunities of leadership and workshops and information to our Black Catholics throughout the Archdiocese. And as you know, the Archdiocese goes from Key West all the way up to Palm Beach. And so we're Dade, Monroe, and Broward County. And we are representative of people of color. And that's anyone from the African diaspora. And that can cover our African Americans, our Jamaicans, our Haitians, our Dominicans, and just anyone of the African diaspora, and of course Africans, and our Hispanic brothers and sisters who are also of the African descent. And we look to preserve the culture, the traditions, the things that make us uniquely who we are, and the fact that above everything else, we are Catholic. We go to Mass the same way, we worship our Lord the same way. We just bring in those things that remind us of who we are. And then we praise our Lord, we sing our songs, and we talk about our ancestors and what it was that they had to go through to be a part of this Catholic Church. If you can imagine what it feels like to want to be a part of your church and your church does not want you to be a part of it. I don't know if you can. You want to be a religious, but you're denied the opportunity to actually get into the seminary or to be a part of an order or to become a religious sister, only because of the color of your skin, not because of your faith, not because of your actions, none of that, but strictly because of your color of your skin. And that happens to be where we are, unfortunately, even more so today. The challenges of today, with all of the things that have happened in back in 2020. In fact, Richard and I were laughing about that earlier, that, oh, let's go to 19 and then come on to 21 and let's leave 20. 20 just was a very challenging year for a lot of different reasons. But the conscious efforts and the conscience raising of the fact that there are people in our world who are treated differently strictly because of the color of their skin. And it even permeates into our faith communities. And for our Catholics, most of us don't really even pay attention to what's different. What makes a difference for a person of color when it comes to our Catholic faith. That systemic racism, systemic discrimination actually makes it very difficult. But we have the will to persevere, and we have throughout all of these decades. Slaves were brought here, became a part of St. Augustine, took on the faith of their slave owners, continued in Catholicism, continued to be committed and want to praise their God. When we look at our candidates, you're going to see how they were rebuffed, but refused to be crushed and wanted to continue on. And so we're going to look at that. The one thing that we really do in the ministry is to raise the awareness of Black Catholicism. The fact that we have actually had Black popes. Very few people are aware of that. We have other Black saints. Very few people are aware of that. These candidates are unique in the fact that they're African Americans. We do not have any African American saints. No one from the US has made it into sainthood. And so it is very, very important that we learn what does it take to even get in to be a saint. And that process of canonization is a very disciplined, dynamic process. There are really 4 major steps to become a saint. I just want to talk a little bit about it. There's the 4 steps. And let's see, Richard, if we can, I'm going to get over here and see if I can get my, oh, I think I just had it. And please bear with me. My 4 steps to canonization. Okay. Okay. Can you see me? I think I lost you. There you go. All right. The very first step, first of all, in order for a person to become a saint, to be named as a saint within our church itself, which is a very, very high honor, and that would mean that your name would be in the official catalog of saints. You have masses, feast days, your name would be honored. You would be able to have your name used in public prayers. And it takes for you to go through that process. The first one is that there has to be a request for a person to become a saint. And it takes at least 5 years after a person dies for them to be able to have a formal request to a bishop in their diocese to become a saint. And when that person is put up for sainthood, they have to have lived a life of holiness, list the reasons for considering this person for sainthood. There is a very extensive investigation that goes on by the bishop, and the bishop will do that before he would even take it any further. If there are witnesses that can come forward to attest to a person's goodness and holiness, devotion to God, other virtues, good to people, then if that person can pass the test of the bishop, he will then take that request to the Vatican to get permission to open up a special tribunal. That tribunal actually turns a person's life almost upside down. And if they pass that test, then they become a servant of God. The second step is the determination. Now, the bishop sends that formal report and that request to Rome, where it's going to be reviewed by what is known as the Congregation and Causes of the Saints. And again, they are turning that person's life upside down. They're looking to make sure their writings, everything that they've done, matches what the church wants the message to be. So by the time that happens, and if they are determined to be virtuous and heroic in their faith, then they can be declared vulnerable. Now, the next step is beatification, and the candidate, if they were a martyr, that was somebody who died for their faith, then they can be beatified and named blessed. Otherwise, a miracle has to come forth and be brought through the intercession of that saint. And that has to be verified. Every step has to be verified, verified, verified. And so therefore, that's why it takes a long time, particularly if the people who are up for sainthood died back in the 1800s or 1700s. Now you really got to go find the information. But if that happens, they get through that, then they get into canonization. And only the Pope makes the final decision based on the information. And if the Pope agrees, that person can be canonized, where they are officially declared a saint. And once the canonization declaration takes place, then there would be a special mass in honor of the new saint. Well, right now we have our 6 candidates for that. And hopefully everyone has had the opportunity to see them, to know who they are. Let's just do this for you. Give you a picture of them. And Richard, I guess I got to get my screen open a little more. I don't know if you can help me with this one. On the bookmark. Okay. Richard, you're muted. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I forgot I was muted. What I was saying is that you go to the upper right next between the minus sign and the X. If you click on up there between the minus sign and the X in the upper right-hand corner, that will expand to the full screen then. So you're close.
Well, the thing is that I have the menu here and I'm not able to get up to the minus sign.
Oh, okay. Yeah, on my side I can see it, but maybe you can't. But anyway, what you have is not too bad. Is not bad. You just have to scroll. You'll have to scroll at the bottom a little bit back and forth. But we see 5 of the 6 persons on there.
Right. The 6 candidates that we have our Venerable Pierre Toussaint, and Pierre Toussaint was born in 1766. He died in 1862. And he was a philanthropist. And we're going to talk a little bit more about him. He was from New York. Next to him is Venerable Sister Henriette De Leo. She was a free woman of color, and she was born in 1812, died in 1862. She actually was the founder of the Sisters of the Holy Family in New Orleans. They helped out the sick, the needy, and we'll talk about how she came to find that order of sisters. Servant of God, Mother Mary Lang, she was the founder of the Oblate Sisters of Providence. That's a religious order of sisters of color. She founded this particular religious order because the other religious orders would not allow her to be a part of their order. So she and a couple of ladies that she was with, they went out and founded their own order. Then we have Venerable Father Augustus Tolton. And Father Augustus Tolton is recognized as the first African-American priest in the United States. And again, he wanted to be a priest. His parents were slaves. They escaped, and he wanted to be a priest, but he was turned away. And we'll talk about that. Servant of God, Julia Greeley, we'll see here. She was out of Denver and suffered, oh my goodness, very harshly by her owners, her slave owners, and how she overcame all of that to be a candidate for sainthood. Next to her is Servant of God, Sister Theo Bowman. Now, Sister Theo Bowman was born in 1937, and she died in 1990, unfortunately, from cancer. But she was a sister who, she wanted to be a sister, and she again had to overcome a lot of racism and pushback on her being able to get into an order. But she did get in. She was an educator. She wrote music. She sang everywhere she went and was responsible for our African-American hymnal and Lead Me, Guide Me. So we're going to talk about her also. So those are our 6 candidates, just to give you a little bit of who they are. And now we can go in and we can talk about them. Now let me see, here we go again. I'm gonna go back over here. And this is Father Augustus Tolton. Father Augustus Tolton, just as you can see his pictures, and we call these little fun facts. And these are posters that anyone can download. They're really good for our young people, but it puts into the fact to tell you something about the particular candidate. First recognized as the Black Catholic priest in America, born into slavery in 1854 to his slave parents, and they were in Missouri. They were owned by a slave owner in Missouri. His family, his mother and his brothers and sisters escaped and crossed the Mississippi River they went over into Illinois, Quincy, as a matter of fact. He expressed an interest in becoming a Catholic. He wanted to be a priest, but the good Catholic people and the good Catholic priests of Quincy did not want him in the school with the other white children. So the local priest taught him. And when he wanted to go off to the seminary, he did that in 1878, they sent him out of the country. And that's the way all of our priests during that time got to be covered. At the age of 26, he was accepted into the College of Propagation of the Faith Seminary in Rome. And there he was able to learn and study to become a priest. In 1886, he was ordained, and he thought that he would be going off to Africa since we had no African-American priests in the US. But he was assigned to his home diocese in Illinois as a pastor of the Negro Church of St. Joseph. And that's how it was referred to at the time. Now in Chicago, Father Tolton became the pastor of this all-Black parish. And he was able to build that parish. He worked with the community. He worked with the people in the church itself. But he died very young. He was only 43. And the thing is that he died on the street of Quincy, of Chicago, without anybody helping him. He had a heat stroke. And by the time they found him, because he was Black, he did not get any help to go into the local hospitals. And they got him back to the facility, and he died in 1897. Now, there's much more information about Father Tolton that we can read. You can get more into that. We have some resources, but Father Tolton right now is on the road. He is venerable. He is on his cause. It is being furthered every day. He has a website. You can go into that. We'll talk about those resources later. And we can pray to him. We can ask for his intercessions. And the Archbishop of Chicago, Bishop Perry, is working towards his cause for sainthood. So we wish and pray with Father Augustus Tolton every day that he's going to be successful in that manner. Then we have Pierre Toussaint. Pierre Toussaint, as I said earlier, he was a slave. His slave owner brought him to New York, where he became an apprentice to a hairdresser. And he was so good at what he did that he was quite successful. He was the leading hairdresser and a stylist himself. He was finally freed from slavery in 1807. He fell in love with a former 15-year-old slave, and he worked where he purchased her to give her her freedom. And when he did that, he married her. They lived in New York. They turned their home into a shelter. He continued to work with the people, with the poor, with travelers. They turned it into their house into a shelter for orphans and into a hostel for priests who would come to the city. In his last days, he worked tirelessly, as it says, to help anyone who needed it. He died in June 30th, 1853. His cause is absolutely being pushed at this time so that we will one day be able to call him Saint Pierre Toussaint. Our next candidate, Julia Greeley. And Julia herself, as we'll see here, she was born into slavery in Missouri sometime between 1833 and 1848. Really don't know because, as you know, slaves they were not kept in the census or given birth certificates. They were on record as property, so they only had their ages. So she really didn't know when she was born. But as a young child, her slave master was very, very cruel to her. He destroyed her right eye. And you'll notice in pictures that you'll see that her eye is half closed. In 1865, she was freed by the Missouri Emancipation Act, but she had to earn her keep by serving the white families in Missouri. Whatever she didn't need for herself, she would give to the poor. And she assisted the poor families, but mostly at night. It was in the book. She begged for food, fuel, clothing, but she would only do it under the cover of darkness. She could not do it out in the open. In 1880, she entered the Catholic Church and had a special devotion to Sacred Heart of Jesus. The Jesuits who ran the parish considered her to be very devout in her love for Jesus. So every month she visited the poor, she visited every fire station, she delivered the literature of the Sacred Heart League. She received communion daily, she prayed to the Blessed Virgin. And in 1901, she joined the Franciscan order, and she was active until she died in 1918. Again, she has her cause, and people are working towards providing the information that's needed for her to move into sainthood. Henriette De Leo, a free woman of color. Henriette, excuse me, she became the foundress of the Sisters of the Holy Family, but she was a woman of strong determination, kindness, compassion. She, again, had a deep love of God. And she, along with a friend of hers, Juliette Goudon and Josephine Charles, they were free women of color. She was expected to get married, but she did not want to do that. She wanted to be a religious. And so she was restrained for 20 years. She tried to apply to the orders, but they did not allow her in. So she and her friends decided that they would go ahead and start their own religious order. And they had the courage to pray, to live for Jesus. They helped out the sick, the poor, the elderly. They were mocked. People made fun of them, but they actually continued to work very hard within their order and to help it to grow. It is still active to this day. She was chosen as the leader. She led that religious order. She encouraged the members all her life for them to be able to endure what Jesus had endured as he made his journey. She died in 1862, and she too is currently in the process of canonization. Mother Mary Lang, again, Mother Mary Lang was born in Haiti. Excuse me. She was actually born in Haiti and brought to America around 1784, and she spoke French. And she was a courageous, loving, religious woman. She came to Baltimore in 1828 with two other ladies, her Mary Frances and Mary Rose, and they formed the Oblate Sisters of Providence because they wanted to be religious nuns, but again, they were turned away. And so they formed their own. In 1829, the Oblate Sisters of Providence are still active to this day in Baltimore. So they professed their vows, they formed the religious order. Their mission was to educate Black children. And the school is currently St. Francis Academy High School in Baltimore. The sisters faced all kinds of criticisms and cruelties, but nevertheless, they were faithful to their missions. And she lived as an Oblate sister for 53 years. Now, just an aside to that, I grew up in Miami and I attended Holy Redeemer Catholic School in Liberty City area. And it was an all Black school. Up until the time I was 12, we had white nuns, religious nuns, and we had white priests. When I was 12, the Oblate Sisters of Providence came to the school. And I've got to tell you, there was nothing greater than a little Black girl seeing a Black nun. Didn't even know they existed. And the Oblate Sisters of Providence continued to operate there until the school closed back in 2001, I think it was. There are Oblate Sisters of Providence sisters over at St. Patrick's in Miami Beach, right to this day. And my favorite nun, Sister Clementina, was the head of religious education there until 2 years ago. She is in her 90s now, retired in Baltimore. But Mother Mary Lang, who was their founder, she's in the process also of canonization, of trying to get her steps together. She loved to teach the children during a time of hatred and oppression, because it was against the law to teach Black children. So they were able to be courageous to do that. Then we had Sister Theo Bowman. Sister Theo Bowman was born in 1937 in Mississippi, and she became a Franciscan sister of the Perpetual Adoration. She was a gifted teacher, a gifted musician, and an evangelizer. She spent her life teaching on all levels. She taught at Xavier University in New Orleans, and Xavier was founded by St. Catherine Drexel. It is actually the only Black Catholic college in the US it's one of the HBCUs. So through her teaching, she was described as a soul liberator, a mind liberator. She believed that the church was actually missing out by not embracing the Black Catholics. She, in 1989, attended a conference with the US Catholic bishops, of where she employed and spoke with them and sang with them and got them to understand that they must evangelize in the Black community, that the church would survive if all people were treated equally. We're all Catholics and we should be treated the same. Now, she used music as an important part of her ministry. As you read about her, you'll always note that she was singing, inviting other people to sing, continued right up to her untimely death in 1990. She was very young, but she had cancer. It ravaged her body, but you would never know it. She always had a sweet smile, a strong spirit, and people loved her. So that would be our 6 candidates that we have that are right now on the road to sainthood. You will note that we are trying very hard to get folks to learn about them, to become aware of who they are, and to be able to understand that they wanted to be Catholic. They had their sacrifices, their devotions, charity, their living proof of what St. Paul calls the folly of the cross. And it ensures us that their witness can do nothing else but inspire fellow Christians to persevere in love, even when facing the greatest of odds. Those are our 6 candidates. We have now I was saying, at the Archdiocese of Miami, a wall dedicated to them with posters of them showing all these African Americans are on the road to sainthood. Now, I'd like to say that what they endured happened a long time ago, and it doesn't happen today, but it does. And so that's why it's so important for us to learn about them, to be aware, to teach our children about Black history, to overcome, to right or wrong if we see it, because we never know who we're turning away and why should we turn them away. We never should. We're all children of God, and we should love one another. So, Richard?
Oh, do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
So with Cardinal Gregory now being the first Black American cardinal, do you think his role will help kind of expedite or at least bring more awareness to some of these candidates?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Cardinal Gregory, who was the Archbishop of Washington, D.C., and is still now the Cardinal in Washington, D.C., he will, because he's always been a fighter for the rights of people. And I know he will be very instrumental in helping to push the cause, because it's been a long time with a lot of these candidates. And in order to help that, at the Institute at Xavier University, the Institute is now combining the causes, and they're coming together to see how you can collectively work to push down the road to sainthood. Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned him. I was going to mention him. I mean, oh my goodness, what an achievement to become a cardinal. and to be the first African-American cardinal. And it's interesting, he's not the first Black cardinal, but he's the first African-American cardinal.
Who was the first Black one?
Well, the first Black one now was an African. He is an African.
Oh,
okay, right.
From the U.S., but the U.S. Cardinal Gregory is the first, I guess, person of color?
First person of color, okay. He's the first Black African-American cardinal, absolutely. He's a wonderful guy. He comes to Miami. As a matter of fact, he has been here a couple times with Archbishop Winsky. Really, I would love for him to come and speak because he's a dynamic speaker. I'll work on that. We'll have to work on that to get him here.
If you don't mind, I'd like to share a story with you. So I'm sure you probably know who Father Sergio Carrillo is.
Yes, I do.
So Father Carrillo, so for Richard and Chris, Father Carrillo, if you don't know who he was the first Black man ordained a priest in the Archdiocese of Miami in 1982. And I was very fortunate. I was in the parish where he was St. John the Apostle in Hialeah. He was, I guess, a deacon there, and he was ordained there, and he remained there as a parish priest. And I was, a boy at school, and like you, I love the story, Katrenia, that you shared about when you were 12 or so. And, so Father Carrillo, when I was young, he came to our parish and our school, and I became very involved in our Boy Scout troop. And he became, to me, an amazing mentor. I stayed very close with him. He, as I'm sure you know, he passed away July of last year and had Alzheimer's for a number of years too. So he had been ill for a number of years, but we were so proud in our parish, and it was a milestone for the Archdiocese. And we were so blessed that he was with us. And for many of our young students and my classmates and so forth, he really became a mentor, very active in our parish and our school. And so I feel very blessed that God, provided him to us when he did.
Absolutely. And I did not know of Father unfortunately, until he died. And that was because he basically was Hispanic, he was Cuban. Mm-hmm. He was a Black Cuban, and he suffered discrimination when he first came to the US. It was a while before he absolutely got accepted, and he went on to mentor so many people. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I tell the story about when I talk about seeing the Oblate Sisters of Providence and how it impacted me so, because up until that point, I never even dreamed that there were Black religious, because I never saw any of them. And it was because every priest I'd ever seen and every nun I'd ever seen were white. They were, so therefore that's what I thought. You had to be white in order to be a nun, or you had to be white in order to be a priest. So that was a real eye opener, and that's what we struggle to make sure that our kids know that they, within this faith, can aspire to be a religious, to be a deacon, to be a altar servant, to be a nun, to be whatever the church calls for them to be, that they're not held back because of the color of their skin. Not at all. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really good. I was talking to Richard earlier about the fact that we had black popes. There are other black saints besides Saint Martin de Porres, which we all know about Saint Martin de Porres. But Saint Martin de Porres was discriminated against. He wanted to be a brother, and he was not allowed to be a brother. They let him into the order, and he was the person who cleaned up. But he was so holy, he was so good, he was so committed that his goodness could not be held down just because of the color of his skin. Yeah, Richard.
Oh, you mentioned St. Martin de Porres. He has kind of a special place in my heart because I've been in formation to become a Dominican, a lay Dominican, and of course he was a lay Dominican as well. And
Yes,
as you mentioned, he experienced some prejudice, to say the least. But there's a wonderful biography of him out there if you can find it, which I've read, and what he went through, but the holiness he exuded and the miracles that were attributed to him, really just quite. I mean, it's almost like you're reading. It seems like you're reading fiction. Like it's hard to believe that one person could have done all of these things, but yet, very humble, but yet so well renowned for his humility, his gentleness, despite the way he was treated, and the miracles that he effected in taking care of the sick. It's quite a moving story, and I would certainly recommend it.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, in November, when we celebrate National Black Catholic History Month, St. Martin de Porres is our mentor. We have at a luncheon, we award the St. Martin de Porres Award of Excellence for someone in the parishes. Each parish can nominate a layperson who has exhibited the characteristics and quality that St. Martin de Porres did. And so therefore we recognize them and we celebrate them and we honor them for St. Martin de Porres. Very good, very good.
If I may, if I can share the screen on my end, there are a couple of websites I would like to show to enhance this. One is right here. You were speaking of Sister Theo Bowman and her speech to the U.S. Catholic bishops. Yes. Well, it's actually here. It's 39 minutes. You see this video is 39 minutes. I just simply went into YouTube and looked up Sister Theo Bowman, and there's quite a number of videos here. But this one particularly, and I have not watched it yet, but I'm going to do that. You can see her entire speech here. This is 1989. I take it she was sick for a while because she looks rather thin to me there. And
yes,
I wonder if she was ill with cancer at that time already, I take it then.
Yes, she was. This was just a couple of months before she passed away.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I see. Oh, that's right. 89. Okay. Yeah.
And that's right. In 90. But this is a wonderful video to look at. And you can see her qualities in here, her evangelization, and how as she spoke. It the one underneath where it says, "What does it mean to be Black and Catholic?" And she spoke to the hearts of, see, it says a year before her death from cancer. This is what she was with the U.S. bishops. She was the keynote speaker at that conference at that time. And she invited them to stand, hold hands, and sing with her. And she actually got them to do it. You know, the bishops aren't known for doing things like that.
Okay. Yeah, especially back then. Yeah, especially 30 years ago.
That's right. She was really great at that. And there are a couple other books on Sister Thea, Thea's song. There are some other DVDs, but here, thank you, Richard, for pulling that up. This is the National Black Catholic Congress website. And this particular website has all kinds of resources and books and gives you information about Black Catholics, what's going on around the country in the different ministries. If you can open it up just a little bit, Richard, enlarge it.
I'm afraid this is as large as I can make it.
That's as large as you can get it, okay. But if you could scroll, can you scroll down?
Sure.
Okay, here you have, this is what you're looking at. This is the Most Reverend Edward Braxton. He was one of our bishops. He just retired not too long ago. And he has a publication on the racial divide. Very good book. He's a very good speaker. He will lead you into learning more about what it takes and how he is saying this is a dangerous hour for the United States. And he wants us to love each other and to learn how to live together. Good read for you. And scroll down some more for me. You'll see that this talks about here that there are no African-American saints formally recognized within the Catholic Church, and some more reading, some more information that you'll be able to get. And then we come down to the fruits of the mysteries of the Rosary. And then we have our Black History Milestones. And this talks about in 1619, a journal entry recorded that 20 odd slaves were brought to the British colony of Virginia, and how they lived and how they were treated. And despite being captive and free Africans, they were present here. It's interesting how my ancestors became Catholics, and most of them took the religion of their slave owners. Okay, and they were Catholic. And it goes on to talk about different kind of months and different events that are going on within the month itself. If I can get you to scroll back up, Richard, to where we were looking at the resources. Come under ministries for me. About Us, I'm sorry, it's under About Us, okay. This is where we're talking about if you'll click on African popes. Can we open that up? Okay. Here it gives you, it's interesting to give information on the popes that were Pope Victor I, whose feast day is July the 28th. And then there was Pope, I can never get his name right, Militatis.
Yes.
Does that sound good?
That does sound good, yes.
Okay. Okay. Pope Militatis. And then we have Gelasius, with his feast day being in November also. So there were Black popes. And then if we'll scroll back up again, I want to show you Black bishops. About Us, and then let's come down to United States Black bishops. And these are currently the active bishops, Most Reverend Edward Campbell, and this is Fernand Cherie, Sheldon Farb, and here is Most Reverend Wilton Gregory, and then Most Reverend Perry, Joseph Perry, and he's out of Chicago. And then as you go down, you'll see the retired bishops, because as you know, when they reach a certain age, they must retire. And there's Reverend Braxton that I was just talking about, Reverend Martin Holly, and Richard, John Richard. And we have Reverend Guy Sanquist, along with Most Reverend Bishop Terry Stibe. And below, this is in memoriam to our bishops who have transitioned on over. So a lot of information, because it's so important that we share the history. You know, we talk about Black History Month. Well, really, it's all year long. Black History is 365 days. And how there's so much information out there that our people don't know about. Our Catholics don't know. And It goes on to the history of Black Catholics, our Black saints and martyrs. If you'll click into that, you'll see Saint Benedict the Moor, Saint Anthony the Great of Thebes, Saint Augustine. So there's a lot of information. Thank God for the internet. That we can find out so much information. Didn't have all this when I was in school. And you know, I'm a product of Miami. Parochial school at Holy Redeemer. I graduated out of Monsignor Edward Pace. And I was one of the first Black kids to attend Pace. You know, you get into, I was in that part where school, there were 2 Black girls, and that was before Pace was even co-ed. It was boys on one side and girls on the other. I'm telling you how old I am. And we had Teresians and we had the brothers. And it's interesting. So I am a product of Miami.
I'm a Pace partner too.
You're
Pace,
what? Oh, you're a Spartan.
87, yes ma'am.
You're a Spartan. And what year was it?
87.
Oh, well, you're 20 years younger than me. I came out in 67.
Oh, wow.
So that's right. They didn't even have grass when I was there. Absolutely.
Yeah, they didn't really even go co-ed till like 74 or 75. Yeah. You were really there at the beginning.
I was at the very beginning. Exactly. So I hope I've been able to share some information with you, give you some insight into what's going on. And I implore you to continue your education of the history of not only Black Catholics, but people of all color and cultures and traditions within our church. That's how we are who we are. So I implore you to do that. We must educate our children. In our religious education classes, we need to bring in the information. We need to bring in the information about our Hispanics, our Haitian culture. I mean, all of the traditions and the cultures that make Miami what it is. We should openly embrace it and share it. And I implore you to look around in your parishes. Are you a part of the solution, a part of the welcoming environment, or are you a part of the divisive environment? Do you include others? Are you aware of how they might even feel if they're not being included? Is there a little girl or a boy or a young man or a young girl, a young woman who never sees anyone else who looks like them? You know, if I can see it, I can believe it. If I can see a Hispanic priest, a Black priest, a Haitian priest, an African priest, a nun, then I can aspire to do that too. So we have to be open, listen, and educate. Always educate. Be a part of the solution, not the problem of society. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a comment. Thank you very much for your presentation, and just highly a high. So not Pace, highly a high.
Okay, go Hialeah.
Go Thoroughbreds.
That's close, Chris. That's probably as close as you can get to Pace.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Was it Hialeah that were the Red Raiders?
No, they're the Thoroughbreds.
Edison.
The Thoroughbreds.
That was Edison. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Edison.
Just to comment, and Richard, as you were looking up on YouTube, I was as well, to see Theo Bowman there. Mm-hmm. And I just imagine her, and I don't know, maybe she talked about this afterwards. I really don't know. I have to go back and watch this as well. I don't know. Were there any African-American bishops at that conference? Mm-hmm. But for her to stand up and you know, in front of all of these white bishops, if you will, just put it out there. And what was her feeling, or what do you think her feeling might have been afterwards? Do you think she felt encouraged, or was she discouraged afterwards? And just, you know, seeing an audience like that, and like you said, not seeing anyone else like her.
Well, by that time in her life, and as it said, this was 1 year prior to her death, she'd already experienced so much during that time. But at that time in her life, she had experienced the fact of looking out and not really seeing people who looked like her, or she was the only one. But she was encouraged. In fact, she talked about that in interviews, and how she was so full of God at that moment, and that time of evangelization, that she was overwhelmed by their response. Actually, you know, she didn't have any negative feelings, other than she felt that she had gotten them to really feel and see what a shame that they would not open up to their congregations of color. She was an amazing woman. She really was. In fact, Richard, the reason I really wanted Dr. Johnny Edwards, to be here with us is because he was a friend of hers. He was a personal friend of hers. You know, that's how contemporary she is. You know, she's the one that we could say, hey, I knew her. I met her. I talked with her. Unlike the others, not that they aren't good, holy people, but when you have someone that you can relate to, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I just to quickly say this to you, I went to a sisters conference, a Black sisters conference, a ladies women's conference, and I was in awe. You know, when we're in our parishes and in our churches, that's really basically all we know. You know, you see your parish, you see your church. But when I went to, I think it was Carolina, to a Black sisters conference, and religious and women, Catholic women, there were so many Black religious there. I was just blown away. I can tell you how I felt, and I can imagine how, you know, she felt. But my case, I looked out, and there were hundreds, thousands of people who looked like me, who practiced my faith, who could talk to me about God and the experiences and what we went through, what we go through. I was so full of enthusiasm. I came back. That's how I got involved with the Archdiocese Office of Black Catholic Ministry. Because she's, you know, there they said we could do more. We could get out. We could evangelize. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So that's why it's important that we do that. Expose your children, expose others, expose yourself. There are only 2 Black parishes left, all Black parishes left in the Archdiocese of Miami. 2. At one time, there were more. We had up to 10, but when parishes closed back in 2009, we closed. Even my parish, St. Philip Neri, was among those parishes that were closed, but we reopened. So we are one of 2 all Black parishes. There are Blacks in parishes throughout, but we're mostly a Black parish.
What's the other parish?
Holy Redeemer.
Oh, okay.
Holy Redeemer Catholic Church. That's in, it's out in Miami. We are in Miami Gardens. Broward County doesn't have any at all. Broward County's parishes merged or closed. And so therefore, they no longer have one. We had a parish, our mother church, Black Mother Church, was over town, St. Francis Xavier. And I don't know if you ever heard of it or remember it. It is closed. So we have no Catholic presence in the Overtown Miami area at all. At all. But we're here. We're here. Okay. Anything else? Ask me anything.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. Obviously, your passion is contagious, so keep doing the great work you're doing, and thank you for sharing your story.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you for having me. Thank you. And you can always call my office. You can reach me. You got a question about something, you're looking for some resources, please, please go to the Archdiocese website, call me. I'll be more than happy to talk with you. Absolutely.
All right, well, wonderful. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up then. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks especially to Katrina for your wonderful, informative, and passionate presentation. I hope all of you who joined us will be able to make our remaining sessions as well, and please invite a friend. Katrina was kind enough to provide a bookmark with portraits of these holy women and men. You saw the bookmark earlier, but she gave me a PDF copy of it. I'll make sure to email it to you gentlemen to get it out there so you can. I actually printed one out here. I only have a black and white printer, but it's nice because it works out very well and has a little biographical information of each of these holy men and women on the back. So that's good. And then one thing, and I just coincidentally, this happened to come into my mailbox. I get a certain email on occasion from Our Sunday Visitor publisher. And so I encourage you to pick up this book called Black Catholics on the Road to Sainthood. You see those pictures are obviously the very popular pictures because they're the same ones that we saw from Katrina, but it's just a booklet. You could easily read it. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon reading. You could read it in one afternoon very nicely. Just short little few pages of biography and then some commentary from different Catholic speakers, white and black, Catholic authors and so on. A little commentary about them, some spiritual insight and so on. And there's beautiful prayers in here for the intercession, for the canonization, also for the intercession, to pray for these various men and women's intercession for a particular cause you have. So I'll send along a link to this as well, to the Amazon entry for it. One last thing I want to say, and I'm sure undoubtedly Katrina is familiar with this book, the book I picked up some time back. Unfortunately, I have, many books to get through, so I haven't gotten to this one yet, but A History of Black Catholics in the United States. Really, it's sort of like, as I see it, as far as I can tell, like kind of the definitive volume. I think this may have been written in the late 80s, early 90s, but Father Cyprian Davis, I have, you might say, a slight connection with him, and that's this. He was a Benedictine monk at St. Meinrad Archabbey in Indiana. And I teach for St. Meinrad's deacon formation program. So when I saw that that's who it was, that he was a monk there, I thought, well, that's kind of neat. But this is a substantial volume that really gives a wonderful, in-depth understanding to us about the development, the challenges, many challenges that Katrina only just barely alluded to, but so many challenges that Black Catholics had in this country over the years, and I would say even to this day. So there are, and thank you for sharing all the resources on the National Catholic Black Congress site. There's a ton of great stuff out there. I've seen that site before, but never really looked into it. But it's nice to know that it's there. So I'll make sure to provide all those links out to our guests here as well.
Well, and thank you very much. And just let me say about Father Davis, he has that was his first book, but there is a second book that he was working on right before he passed away. So
was it this one? Taking Down Our Harps?
I think so.
He's an editor. He's an editor of this one as well. It may be something else, but he's an editor, a co-editor on this book.
Right. I was reading about it, but I know because the history of Black Catholics in America, that's the definitive book.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful book with information to it. Absolutely.
Well, wonderful. Thank you again to our guests for joining us, and to Katrina for enlightening us. It's a beautiful topic, and the joy that you have comes out very plainly in your in the way you present. So thank you so much for that.